I paid the man who killed my wife. That's what I realized the night my granddaughter told me my daughter was still alive. For 7 years, I believed my only child burned to death on a dark highway. For 7 years, I sent her husband $40,000 every January. And for 7 years, I kept an urn on my mantle that I now know never belonged to her. My name is Thomas Hale. I'm 68 years old. I've buried a daughter and a wife. At least, that's what I thought. They told me the crash was violent. The car exploded on Route 9. Flames so intense there couldn't be a viewing. Her husband identified her from dental records. They handed me a brass and said, "This is what remains." What remains? I remember holding it. It felt too light to carry a life. 6 months later, my wife collapsed in our kitchen. The doctors said heart failure, but I know the truth. She died believing her daughter screamed inside a burning car. And I let her, because I believed it too. The only reason I kept breathing after that was my granddaughter, Emma. Every other Saturday, we sat on the same park bench. Ice cream, routine, survival disguised as normalcy. That afternoon felt ordinary, until it wasn't. Emma stopped mid-sentence. A small hand gripped my sleeve so tight I felt her shaking. "Grandma, please stop sending Daddy money." I smiled gently. "Sweetheart, that money is for you." Her lips trembled. "No, it's not." The air shifted. "What do you mean?" She looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then she whispered the words that shattered a 7-year grave. "Mommy comes to the house." I felt my heart misfire. "Emma, Mommy died." She shook her head violently. "No. She comes at night. Daddy says I can't tell you. He says you'll ruin everything." My vision blurred. Ruin everything. Everything was already ruined. I buried her. I mourned her. I paid for her memory. And now my 7-year-old granddaughter was telling me the dead woman I cried over was walking through her front door. I leaned closer, my voice barely steady. "When did you see her?" Emma swallowed hard. Last week. Last week. Not years ago. Not a dream. Last week." And that's when I understood something that made my stomach turn. If my daughter was alive, then someone had to be inside that urn, and someone had to know the truth, which meant one thing. For 7 years, I hadn't just been grieving, I had been funding a lie, and I was about to find out who buried me in it. Didn't confront them that night. Grief reacts, revenge observes. Instead of pulling into Daniel's driveway, I parked across the street. Engine off, lights off, heart pounding so loud I thought it might betray me. The house looked ordinary, porch light glowing, curtains half drawn. The same house I helped him buy after the funeral. The same house I paid to maintain. Inside that house, my granddaughter slept, and possibly my dead daughter. I told myself Emma was confused. Children imagine things. Trauma does strange things to memory. But then I remembered something that made my hands go cold. The accident report. Closed casket. Daniel identifying her alone. I never saw her body. Not once. 3 hours passed. Then headlights turned into the driveway. A black sedan. Slow. Careful. Daniel stepped outside before the car even fully stopped. He looked around first, not casually, nervously. The passenger door opened. A woman stepped out wearing a baseball cap and oversized sunglasses. Even from across the street, I felt it. Recognition doesn't need clarity. It needs instinct. Daniel didn't greet her like someone he missed. He grabbed her like someone protecting a secret. He kissed her, not gently, not politely, desperately. The porch light flickered. Just once. She lifted her head slightly, and I saw her face. Older, thinner, hair darker. But it was her. The same small scar near her eyebrow from falling off her bike at 9 years old. The same tilt of her head when she left. My daughter, the woman I cremated, the woman my wife died mourning, standing under a porch light, alive. My body went numb. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt something worse. Clarity. She wasn't kidnapped. She wasn't forced. She wasn't hiding in fear. She was smiling. Smiling as she walked into the house where her child believed she was a ghost. 7 years. 7 years of phone calls asking for money. 7 years of Daniel texting, It's been hard on Emma. 7 years of me sending $40,000 without hesitation. And now I understood something horrifying. I wasn't supporting my granddaughter. I was financing their escape. But the most devastating thought hadn't even arrived yet. Because as the front door closed behind them, I realized something else. If she was alive, then whose ashes were sitting on my mantle? And who helped them disappear? Because accidents don't stage themselves, and bodies don't misidentify by coincidence. That wasn't just a lie. It was a plan, and I had just stepped into the middle of it. But what I would discover next was darker than survival. It was betrayal by design. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw 2 images. The urn on my mantle, and my daughter kissing her husband under that porch light. One of them was a lie. Maybe both were. I hired a private investigator the next morning. I didn't tell him what I suspected. I simply said, I need to know if my daughter really died 7 years ago. He didn't ask questions. 2 weeks later, he called me into his office. He didn't look comfortable. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end quietly. He slid a thick folder across the desk. Mr. Hale, he said carefully, the accident happened. But the victim wasn't your daughter. My ears rang. What do you mean? The dental records used for identification were submitted by your son-in-law. We checked the original autopsy notes. The body had a surgical scar your daughter never had. My hands went cold. So whose body was it? He turned the page. A woman named Marissa Cole. 32 years old, no close family, no active missing persons case filed beyond a temporary report. No one fighting loudly enough for answers. She disappeared the same week as the crash. The car that burned on Route 9 had been registered under a false transfer 2 days before the accident. Insurance payout $850,000. Filed 11 days after the funeral. 11 days, while my wife was still sleeping beside her daughter's urn. While she was crying herself sick, they were filling out claim forms. The investigator kept talking. There's more. There were surveillance photos. My daughter using a different name in another state. Renting an apartment under an alias. Meeting Daniel twice a month. Bank records showing large transfers, including the exact $40,000 deposits I sent every January. Not for Emma, not for therapy, not for school. Offshore accounts, vacation rentals, luxury purchases. 7 years. They didn't just fake a death. They built a life on top of it. But the most disturbing detail wasn't financial. It was psychological. Emma had seen her mother multiple times, but only at night, and only when Daniel thought she was asleep. They were training her to keep quiet, telling her grandpa would ruin everything. Ruin what? Their money, their freedom, or the illusion. I closed the folder slowly. There's a moment when grief dies. Not because you stop loving, but because love is replaced by understanding. My daughter didn't escape danger. She escaped responsibility, and she let her mother die believing she was burned alive. I stood up. How strong is this case? I asked. The investigator met my eyes. Strong enough to destroy them. Good, because destruction was no longer my fear. It was my intention. But there was still one thing left that made my stomach twist. If they staged the accident, who helped them? And how far did this lie really go? Because accidents don't create $1 million exits without assistance. And I was about to pull a thread that might unravel more than just my family. January came like it always did. Cold, quiet, predictable. Right on time. Daniel texted, "Hey, just checking if you'll send it this week. Things are tight. Things are tight." I stared at that message for a long time. 7 years. 7 years of polite reminders. 7 years of me wiring $40,000 without hesitation. This time, I replied with one word. Tomorrow. But I didn't send money. I sent evidence. Every surveillance photo, every falsified dental record, every bank transfer, every insurance document, to the Insurance Fraud Division, to federal investigators, to the IRS. Then I waited, 3 days later, Two police cruisers rolled onto their street just after sunrise. Neighbors stepped outside in robes and slippers. Daniel opened the door looking confused. Claire was behind him. Alive, breathing, real. The officers didn't shout. They didn't need to. They already had everything. Daniel tried to argue, claimed harassment, mistake, identity confusion. Claire didn't speak. When they placed the handcuffs on her wrists, she looked smaller than I remembered. Not dead, just diminished. She saw me standing across the lawn. For a moment, her face cracked. "Dad," she whispered. I didn't move. "Why?" I asked. She swallowed hard. "We were drowning in debt. Daniel said it was the only way. We needed a fresh start. A fresh start. My wife died for their fresh start." I stepped closer. "Your mother died believing you were trapped in a burning car." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't think it would go that far." "Go that far? You fake your death. You collect insurance. You steal from your father. You lie to your child. And you didn't think it would go that far." Then she said something that hurt more than the fraud. More than the money, more than the arrest. "You should have let me go." Let her go, as if I had chained her, as if loving her was the crime. That was the moment something inside me closed. Not anger, not rage, finality. Daniel was shouting now as officers led him to the second cruiser. "You ruined us." No, they ruined themselves. 7 years ago, when they chose money over family, when they chose escape over truth, when they chose to let my wife die with ashes that weren't even her daughter's. The police cars pulled away. The street fell silent. But I wasn't finished, because there was still one thing left in my house. One lie that had been sitting on my mantle for 7 years. And what I did with it next was the only mercy left in this story. The house felt different after the arrests. Quieter, not peaceful, just emptied. I stood in front of the urn that had lived on my mantle for 7 years. 7 birthdays. 7 Christmas mornings. 7 anniversaries of a death that never happened. I used to talk to it sometimes, when the store was slow, when the nights were too long, when I missed her laugh. Now I stared at it and felt something colder than grief. Betrayal has a temperature. It's not hot like anger. It's freezing. DNA confirmed what I already knew. The ashes were not my daughter's. They belonged to a woman named Marissa Cole. 32 years old. No children. No parents left alive. No one to demand answers when she disappeared. She became a body in a staged accident, a prop in my daughter's escape. I drove to the memorial garden just outside town, not the lake where my wife once wanted to scatter our daughter. This woman deserved her own place, her own name, her own dignity. I opened the urn slowly. My hands didn't shake this time. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Not to Claire. To Marissa. The wind carried the ashes gently across the grass. For 7 years, I had been mourning the wrong person. Now, for the first time, I was doing something honest. Claire was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. 7, the same number of years I believed she was dead. Daniel received 9. Fraud, conspiracy, identity falsification. Emma came home with me the day the judge signed custody papers. No hesitation, no argument. The court doesn't look kindly on parents who fake their own deaths. That first night, she crawled into the guest bedroom I had prepared. She looked smaller somehow. "Grandpa," she asked quietly. "Yes, sweetheart. Are you mad Mommy's alive?" I sat beside her bed. I thought about that port light, that kiss, that sentence. "You should have let me go." And I answered honestly, "I'm not mad she's alive." Emma looked confused. "Then what are you?" I brushed her hair back gently. "I'm sad she chose not to be your mother. That's the truth no one prepares you for. Sometimes people don't leave because they die. They leave because they decide you're not worth staying for. I buried my daughter once because I believed she was gone. I buried her again the day she chose money over family. The first burial was fire and ashes. The second was silence. And this time, it was permanent.